Hi, welcome to another episode of PhotoshopLightroomTV. I'm your host, Marek Mularczyk from SAItraining.co.uk, and this is episode 83 of PhotoshopLightroomTV, your weekly video podcast about anything Photoshop, Lightroom, Bridge, photography related as well. I hope you enjoyed last week's Adobe Creative Week. I hope you tuned in and you watched Adobe evangelists and Adobe designers creating effects, showing you the new features in Photoshop CS6 as well. Each day was devoted to a different area, working with Adobe Creative Suite. So for example, on Friday we had photography. So there was Julian Cost and others among them. Okay, now let me start off with a Photoshop tutorial, and I'll be showing you some interesting features within the swatches. Not that often used by some designers, so maybe you take advantage of using swatches in your daily work with Photoshop. And obviously I'll be using Photoshop CS6. So let's jump into Photoshop and let's have a look on swatches. I've got an image open as an example. And just a couple of things about the swatches. So the swatches panel appear here by default in Photoshop. You can also find it under Window menu. Okay. Now a couple of things about the swatches. First of all, we've got a set of swatches that display the colors. If you click on any of the swatches panel, this will change your foreground color. So if you look on here at the bottom of the tools panel, my foreground color changes as I'm clicking on the swatches. Okay, in here, which could be used by the brush tool as an example. So I could just paint with the green brush. Okay. Because brush tool uses the foreground color. But if you go into the swatches menu in here, there's lots of options. For example, you can display them as large thumbnails, so it'll be easier to see in here. Or you can even display them as a list, which will show you the names. So as you scroll down the list, you can see the names of the swatches. So for example, if you're looking for a pure red color swatch, you can find it somewhere here, pure red. Okay. Or there's a swatch that I've created, Photoshop, okay, because you can also create your own swatches. Let's explore a bit more in the options bar here. You've got a new swatch option here. So I'll show you an example. I'm just going to change my foreground color. So I'm going to click on this color swatch for the foreground color. And I'm going to, now I'll show you how I created the Photoshop color swatch. The values for Photoshop using CMYK values are 100 for C, 40 for M, and then 0 for Y, and 0 for K. So that's the blue color for Photoshop. So I'll press OK. Now in the swatches panel, I'll click on the menu in the top right corner and I'll choose new swatch. Now the foreground color, will be used to create a new swatch, and that's how I created the Photoshop swatch. That's how you can create your own color swatches in Photoshop. Just going to cancel that here, and back to the pop-up menu in the swatches. You can load loads of extra swatches, and you can even load swatches using load command. Okay, so for example, you can load some swatches from the file that may be given to you. Maybe you've created another machine and you exported it. Whenever you load in swatches from a file, you'll be prompted whether you want to append them to existing swatches or replace the existing swatches with these new swatches. So you choose what you want to do. And here's a quick overview of swatches in Photoshop CS6. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial in Photoshop. I've got one more tutorial for you in Photoshop, and I've got a tip of the week as well, as usual. Remember to keep up to date. Follow my blog, PhotoshopLightroomBridge.co.uk, and remember you can link with me on Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm posting daily on my blog. I'm posting anything that's new, news from Adobe, as well as tutorials, tips, tricks, and links to other websites where you can find lots of interesting effects. Now I'm going to show you an interesting tutorial on some blending in Photoshop. We're going to blend two images of two different cameras, and we're going to make it into one camera. Okay, so I'm going to take the image of the Canon camera and Nikon camera, and we'll blend them together using layer masks. So let's do some compositing, some blending in Photoshop CS6. I was playing around with Photoshop the other day, and here's the interesting effect I came up with, just a couple of ideas. I've got this image of the Nikon camera in here, and I've got another image of the Canon camera. I'm going to put them together. So I'm going to drag and drop the Canon camera image into Nikon. Before I release the mouse button, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, so the image will end up in the center of the document. Now this image is smaller, so I'm just going to scale it using free transform, so Control T or Command T, and I'm holding Shift key and Alt key, so the image is being resized from the center of the image. Okay, I'm just going to make it more or less the same size. I can resize it later on anyway. That's for now. I'm going to unlock the background layer, so I'll just double click on it. This will be the Nikon. Okay, this one is Canon. I'm going to position the Canon camera behind the Nikon camera. Now on the Nikon layer, I'm going to add a layer mask, and on this layer mask I'm going to reveal the Canon lens. Now I was thinking about brushing on with the black brush here. So one idea would be to use the brush tool, set your foreground color to black, set the hardness to 100%, maybe make the brush a bit bigger, okay, and just paint to reveal the lens behind. And it's just one idea. But then it hit me, the lens is circle. So instead, just undo it, I'll just use the elliptical marquee tool. And with the elliptical marquee tool, I'm going to drag out, holding down the Shift key, circle. To reposition the circle, I'm going to press and hold the space bar. Just want to get it more or less the same. That should be okay. So I'll raise the mouse button and I'll just fill it with black. Now because my foreground color is black, I'm just going to use Alt backspace to fill it with black. I'm going to deselect it. And now on the Canon layer, I'll need to reposition the lens. Maybe scale it a bit. Maybe make it a bit smaller. Move it a bit more. Seems to be right. I'll try to make it even a bit smaller. Here we go. We're getting the Canon lens on the Nikon body. And then I thought, you know what? How about changing the D90 with the EOS 550D? So I'm just going to hide the Nikon layer for a moment. On the Canon layer, I'm going to select it. So I'll just zoom in really close to make it easier. And I'm just going to use quick selection tool. I'll quickly select it. Let's see. Well, no. I'm going to use the lasso tool just to quickly select it. I'm going to brush it, blend it later on anyway, so I don't need to be too precise. Okay, I'm going to put it onto a new layer, Control J or Command J on a Mac. This will be the EOS. Okay, I'll show the Nikon layer and I'll move the EOS layer above, that's what I put in front, and I'll move it here. Oh, I'm just going to move it here for a moment because I'm going to hide the D90. So on the Nikon layer, I'll click on the layer mask. Actually, no, I'm just going to retouch it. So I'll select the layer thumbnail and I'll use the clone stamp tool, a bit smaller, and I'll just hide it here. Okay, I'm back to the EOS layer. I'm going to move it here, and I'll add I'm going to use the blend mode. So to do probably a color dodge, looks really good. I'll just add a layer mask and I'll blend it using the brush tool. This time I'm going to use a very soft brush, so the hardness very low. Make the brush a bit smaller, and I'll just blend it into this layer here. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Looks really good. Nikon EOS 550D. Just a quick example of what can be achieved with just a bit of masking on the images. Welcome back. Now you may have noticed the difference. I am not having my laptop right now. Yeah, I thought for a change I'm going to do a bit of work with my tablet. Tablets are becoming more and more popular. They're growing rapidly. According to Adobe researchers, the growth of the tablet market in the last year was over 300%. And more universities and colleges start using tablets as well. Tablets are amazing devices that you can do so much. Have a look on Adobe Touch-Ups, the Adobe applications created for tablets. So for example, Photoshop Touch. So have a look on Adobe website, and they're cheap. They're around £7 each, £6.70, £6.80, something like that. They're $10, so about a bit less than £7 each. They run on Android and iOS. All Adobe Touch-Ups run on Android. Not all of them run on iOS yet, but they will. And have a look at them and use them. You can have a look on my blog at PhotoshopLightroomTV. I've got 2 posts about Adobe Touch-Ups, so you can get an idea of what they do, how they work. Now let me leave you with a tip of the week. I'm not sure if you noticed, this links to the tutorial I showed you earlier with the swatches. Within the swatches panel in Photoshop, they usually show as small little squares, but you can also make them bigger. Have a look in the drop-down menu in the top right corner of the swatches panel. You can find it there. And that's the tip for this week. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. I'm Marek Mularczyk from SAI Training.co.uk, one of the UK's leading specialists in Adobe Certified training, and a photographer. I've been into photography for many years, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to see you next week in next week's episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.